A full cycle of seasons had passed since that earth-shaking moment in the Chamber of Echoes, the moment that shattered the old world and ushered in a new dawn shrouded in uncertainty. Now imagine Alara Vance, not just a woman hardened by trials, but the living embodiment of a mother's relentless love, standing tall on the stage of a vast auditorium. The air buzzed with quiet electricity, a mix of grief held close and hope fiercely guarded. Before her, thousands of faces formed the first gathering of kin rejoined, a sanctuary born from shared heartbreak and an unyielding call for justice. This fellowship was dedicated to a sacred mission, to mend the torn threads of lives shattered by the cruel trade of stolen childhoods, and to rewrite the very laws that had, through neglect or worse, allowed such darkness to thrive. Her voice rang out, clear and steady, slicing through the silence like a beacon. When my son stood in that chamber, the same place where we once faced our deepest despair, and said, "You are my mother," he did more than reclaim his place beside me. He sparked a blaze of truth, a fire burning away decades of lies. Her words stirred the crowd, lighting the room with a shared resolve. Countless others, once lost stars in a cold sky, had since found their way back into the warmth of belonging. Near the front sat Leo, a quiet anchor amid the swelling emotion, flanked by Clara Meadows, whose silver hair and steady gaze spoke of battles fought and wisdom earned, and Maya, whose own scars told a story of survival. At just 9 years old, Leo carried a strength beyond his years. His past, once raw and unrefined, had been shaped by reunion and healing, forging in him a fierce determination to guide others through their own dark nights toward the light. This day, Alara's voice cut through the room, sharp, fierce, and filled with heart, her eyes scanning the crowd like a lighthouse sweeping over restless seas. Each face held a story, every pair of eyes a universe of struggle and survival. Today, we do more than stitch broken circles back together. Today, we sound the call of reckoning, long overdue, for those who once thought themselves untouchable. She paused, letting the weight settle, then continued, voice steady and unflinching. The scales of justice, once tipped wildly in favor of the cruel, now buckle under the weight of truth. Over 300 architects of pain, those who pulled the strings, built the dark machinery, stand exposed. Their empires of cruelty are falling apart. 42 pillars of power, cloaked in respectability but rotten at the core, now find themselves behind cold walls of stone and steel. 8 so-called sanctuaries, institutions meant to heal, are now branded with betrayal. But these victories, though vital, are overshadowed by one undeniable truth. 573 young lives, once lost at sea, have been brought home. Beacon by beacon, they've found their way back to the roots that never forgot them, their identities reclaimed, their stories rewritten. A wave of applause erupted, thunderous, raw, and triumphant. Faces glowed with fragile hope. Warriors of the cause felt their spirits rise, lifted by proof that their fight mattered, and guardians of justice stood taller, steeled by the sheer scale of this hard-won triumph. Alara saw it, the glimmer of tears held just at the brink, countless drops catching the light like tiny stars, each one a silent testament to sorrow endured and miracles born anew. Listen closely. Project Chimera Hunt began as a fragile spark, just a whisper against a deafening wall of silence. Now it stands as a relentless force within the Bureau, fueled by warriors who refuse to let these horrors hide any longer. Alara declared, her voice sharp and unshakable. Their archives, massive libraries of DNA and forgotten truths, pulse constantly, each new genetic match a note in a growing symphony of reunion. Week after week, lives are pieced back together. The funds recovered, once non-existent, have now surged past $500 million. Money taken from the hands of those who profited on suffering is being poured back into barren lives, watering fragile hopes where once only despair took root. But don't mistake progress for victory. Our battle is far from over. The past year has ripped away the veil to reveal a monstrous truth. A tangled network of crime, sprawling and poisonous, creeping silently across the nation. For 30 years, this dark machine stole countless newborns, trading futures like currency. Sold to the wealthy, the desperate, all hidden behind a mask of corrupted protectors and forged documents. Lies crafted to erase history and legitimize cruelty. Think of the fallen tyrants, names once whispered in fear or hollow respect. Dr. Alistair Thorne, the mastermind behind endless suffering, now sentenced to 25 years, locked in the darkness he forged, every sunrise a cruel reminder of the light he stole. Alara said, her voice heavy with solemn truth. Magistrate Corbin, once the face of justice, now stripped of power and honor, faces 2 decades behind bars, a legacy stained beyond repair. The Prestons, along with 19 other couples who coldly bought stolen joy, now serve sentences between 10 and 15 years, their false happiness crumbling to dust. But prison walls and iron bars offer no real comfort for the families shattered by their crimes. Those wounds, deep and raw, may never fully heal. They ache like phantom limbs, reminders of years lost and love denied. Her hand moved with quiet strength, directing the crowd's gaze to the glowing screens lining the hall. Vivid scenes of healing, circles of comfort where tears fall freely, safe havens where broken families slowly weave frayed bonds back together. True restoration, she declared, her voice steady and warm, is not forged in cold cells or harsh court rulings. It grows here, in these sacred spaces where breath is shared and trust, once crushed by betrayal, finds the courage to sprout again. Here, broken reflections of love are carefully pieced back, shard by shard. Here, communities of the lost and the broken lift one another from the abyss, bound by shared stories and a flicker of hope. Picture this. The convention wasn't just a series of speeches. It was a living, breathing organism of healing and hope. Seminars led by those who had journeyed through trauma's darkest maze offered guiding stars and roadmaps to those still wandering its twisting corridors. Workshops buzzed with sharp minds, wielding legal knowledge like swords, cutting through old laws and crafting fresh tools to battle the system's deep-rooted corruption. Conversations dove into the fragile art of mending family ties, how to cross the yawning gaps left by lost years and rebuild love from the ground up. Therapists and counselors, with gentle hands and knowing eyes, laid out paths for young souls, and the older ones too, to find their way through shadowed valleys toward peace and acceptance. Law enforcement officers, once weary, now armed with new wisdom and fierce determination, mapped out stronger defenses, fortresses built to stop this darkness from taking root again. But the heart of it all? The sacred, unfiltered circles of shared stories. Here, masks slipped away, and voices once silenced by grief or fear spoke their truths. Stories of loss, resilience, flickering hope, and the joyous miracle of reunion. It was here that pain transformed into power, weaving individual wounds into a collective strength and an unbreakable resolve. My own son, Alara's voice softened, carrying the weight of a mother's unspoken depths, became my greatest teacher, an accidental sage wrapped in a child's fragile frame. He showed me that love leaves a mark impossible to erase, a silent song that no wound, no trauma, can ever drown out. He remembered the rhythm of my heartbeat from the womb, the faint echo of lullabies whispered in the dark before he was born. The very sound of my soul. These were the lifelines he grasped in the terrifying emptiness of a stolen childhood. But his story isn't unique. Hundreds, maybe thousands of children now find their voices, speaking of phantom threads, a familiar scent, a half-forgotten melody, a fleeting image that defy the void carved by lost years and the poison of lies. These invisible anchors guide them, often without their knowing, back to the truth of where they belong. Her eyes, brimming with a silent, fierce love, found Leo. His smile was like a sudden sunbeam breaking through clouds, warming every heart in the room. Once adrift in a maze of temporary homes and fractured selves, he now stood steady, a lighthouse for others lost in the storm. His quiet bravery showed that the heart's ravaged landscape could bloom anew, vibrant and unbreakable. Beside him, Maya, a sister forged in shared trials, had grown into a quiet but powerful force. Together, they became a lifeline for children newly rescued from chaos, reflecting hope and healing in their steady, unspoken bond. The verity of our shattered histories, Alara declared, her voice sharpening with steely resolve, was buried deep beneath mountains of institutional rot, smothered by layers of bureaucratic indifference and willful, malevolent concealment. Yet truth is like a hidden river underground, relentless, unyielding, finding any crack or fissure to break through and reach the light. Imagine this: one child, Leo, with a spirit so unwavering it defied erasure. One sentinel of healing, Clara Meadows, risking everything to safeguard fragile evidence and murmur forbidden truths when silence was demanded. A mother's fierce, unquenchable hope, my own and countless others, that no manufactured grief could ever snuff out. These small scattered embers of courage, set against a bleak landscape of despair, began to draw together, pulled by the magnet of justice, until they erupted into a roaring conflagration. A righteous fire that consumed once impenetrable fortresses of malfeasance, their foundations of lies reduced to ash. Clara Meadows sat quietly nearby, her dignified presence radiant with unshed tears. Once a solitary, near-clandestine guardian of secrets and whispered hopes, she had become the very heartbeat of their fellowship, a living balm to broken souls. Her hard-earned wisdom offered refuge to the lost, and her painstakingly compiled ledgers, names, dates, illicit dealings, were the keys that had pried open cells and brought countless villains to justice. And so, from this day forward, from this momentous gathering, a new banner rises, a blazing symbol of our unyielding commitment and fierce refusal to surrender. Alara's voice rang out, electrifying the assembly. Behold, the Phoenix Initiative. Born from the ashes of our shared suffering and fueled by the fire of our collective strength, it will be our spearhead, our front line in the relentless fight against darkness. This initiative pledges to forge unbreakable shields of law and vigilance around the sacred trust of adoption, transforming it into a pathway of love, never exploitation. It sharpens justice's talons against those who traffic in human futures, ensuring the price of such crimes becomes unbearably steep. It carves immutable safeguards, ethical and legal ramparts, deep into the bedrock of this nation, protecting new life from theft at its very cradle. Funded by the ill-gotten fortunes wrested from fallen syndicates, the wealth built on stolen innocence, the Phoenix Initiative will also sow seeds of hope. It will grant scholarships, mentorships, and learning pathways to the children of the dawn, those whose futures nearly vanished. It will weave intricate, resilient nets of unwavering support for families reborn, guiding them through the complex, fragile journey of healing and reconnection. For this monumental mission, Alara stepped down from her high seat of judgment, a throne of power and prestige to lead from the front lines. Her seasoned legal wisdom, intimate grasp of justice's strengths and failures, now lend unstoppable momentum to their clarion call for profound, systemic transformation. Yet, beyond every decree, every grand design, every vital strategy and initiative, Alara's voice softened, rich with a profound warmth, a balm to the raw edges of her listeners' hearts. I bring you a message of a force far greater and more enduring. Hope, not a fragile wish cast to the wind, but a deep artesian wellspring that sustained us through the driest, most barren deserts of absence, when all seemed lost. Hope is that steadfast internal compass, guiding young hearts, sometimes stumbling, but never surrendering, through the twisting labyrinth of searching for a stolen dawn, for a truth they sensed but could not name. Hope is the lion's courage, the fierce, unyielding strength that fortified mothers, fathers, entire families, shielding them from the insidious whispers of despair, empowering them to rise, to fight, to keep vigil, day after day. Behind her, the grand screens blossomed to life, windows into countless renewed worlds. Leo and Alara, their silhouettes bathed in the golden light of their first shared horizon, a simple moment heavy with meaning. Maya's family, faces radiant, marking each brave step on her journey back to laughter. Every small victory, monumental, circles of shared strength, men and women, young and old, heads bowed in solemn understanding or thrown back in joyous laughter, where the alchemy of human connection transforms the leaden weight of individual pain into the pure gold of collective power. Each fleeting scene was a vivid testament to the human spirit's quiet, relentless defiance of darkness, its boundless capacity to heal, to love, even after unimaginable loss. A mere 12 moons ago, Alara's voice softened, touched with the bittersweet echo of disbelief and wonder. My son and I stood against the cold, harsh calculus of despair, against towering walls of deceit and loss, and bridged a chasm that had swallowed 8 long years of our lives. But today, see us not as isolated survivors, but as part of a vast, luminous constellation, hundreds of families united, each a testament to an extraordinary, improbable reunion. Each reunion a triumphant victory, devotion over greed, clarity over cold deceit, righteousness over the long, chilling shadows of betrayal. With a graceful sweep of her hand that encompassed both her son and the hopeful crowd, she beckoned Leo to her side. He stepped up to the podium, his stride calm, steady, a quiet certainty beyond his years. His small hand found hers, a familiar, grounding touch. This child, Alara said, her hand resting gently on Leo's shoulder, a gesture of deep maternal pride and profound respect, was once branded with cruel labels. Problematic, damaged. Labels forced upon him by those desperate to keep the shutters tightly closed on the horrific truth of his stolen past. Those who sought to silence his inconvenient memories. Look at him now, no longer a victim defined by his past, but a scholar whose mind soars, hungry for knowledge and understanding. A young healer whose mended spirit channels empathy and wisdom to soothe others who walk a similar path. He is living proof that with unwavering support, through the steady, gentle rain of understanding and patience, the parched earth of trauma can bloom vibrant blossoms of resilience and recovery. Leo turned to the assembly. His voice was that of a child, but carried the undeniable weight of hard-won wisdom, truths born in the deepest valleys of experience. When I found my mother, he said, his words simple but profoundly clear, touching every heart, I believed our reunion was a lone star in a vast, dark night, a miracle just for us. But then the darkness began to lift. Our eyes adjusted. and we saw others, so many others, children like me, adrift and searching, mothers like her, their arms aching with emptiness only a child can fill. And now, he finished, a small smile playing on his lips as his gaze swept across the room. We are the lamplighters, together, guiding them from shadow, back into the light, back to one another. A wave of humanity rose as one. The applause not just sound, but a palpable force, a torrent of affirmation, gratitude, and shared triumph that seemed to shake the very foundations of the auditorium. Alara's gaze swept across the faces before her, each one a shining beacon in this vast sea of reclaimed lives. Isabel, Maya's mother, her face a living canvas of joy, tears flowing freely, a testament to her arduous journey to this moment. Maya herself, standing close, her smile reflecting a newfound peace. Clara Meadows, her expression a blend of matriarchal warmth and profound satisfaction, the secret fruits of her lifelong labor now blooming magnificently. Inspector Hanson, nodding with crisp, professional poise, yet her eyes betraying the deep stirrings this movement had awakened. Even within the hardened ranks of law enforcement, each individual, a vital, irreplaceable thread, woven into the intricate, luminous tapestry of this year's profound transformation. Later, as twilight gave way to celebration, the feast was no mere banquet of food and drink. It was a feast of shared joy and fellowship. Picture the scene. Children, whose laughter had once been stolen, now darted through the crowd like quicksilver, their voices bright with tales of adventure and the easy confidence born of newfound strength. Mothers and fathers, who had mourned empty cradles and phantom futures, now held their reclaimed treasures close, their embraces a silent, fervent vow to fill lost years with boundless devotion and cherished moments. You've conjured a marvel, Ilara, a true wonder born from despair, Clara murmured later, her gaze soft as it rested on Leo, who now moved with the natural grace of a born leader, orchestrating a playful, chaotic skirmish among a gaggle of equally boisterous youngsters. This fellowship, Clara added, this unstoppable tidal surge of change, it's not merely transforming lives, it's rewriting destinies, reshaping the future. Nay, Clara, Alara gently replied, eyes shining with profound gratitude. This marvel, this movement, was born not of one, but of many hands, many hearts beating as one. Your chronicles, unwavering and brave, laid the foundation for truth. Lena, whose relentless pursuit unearthed clues from the darkest shadows, cutting through layers of deception. Isabel, whose nurturing circles blossomed into havens of profound healing, mending spirits one by one. Commander Davies, whose methodical resolve unraveled the most labyrinthine lies, bringing order to chaos. And see, she gestured toward the children, how they become beacons for one another. Their shared journeys, their unspoken understanding, forging bonds of healing stronger than any therapy alone could provide. By then, the Bureau's elite Project Chimera Hunt had stretched its investigative tendrils across the nation, a formidable force led by Commander Rex Davies, a man whose stern exterior masked an unyielding dedication to justice. In his characteristically blunt style, Davies often declared that Leo's story, the improbable reunion of one boy with his mother, had ignited the spark that reshaped their entire doctrine, revolutionizing how they fought the insidious, deeply entrenched trade in stolen children. That boy's journey, Davies would say, his voice steady and resolute, was the Rosetta Stone. It gave us the key, the cipher to decode the complex, deliberately hidden patterns, the phantom death notices, cold and clinical, the complicit authorities who greased the wheels of this monstrous machine, the cruel shuffling of vulnerable children through a labyrinth of shelters designed to erase their origins and silence their fledgling memories. Now, he'd add, a grim satisfaction flashing in his eyes, the path through that maze is lit. We can expose these buried conspiracies, dismantle their networks, and build unshakable fortresses of justice, ensuring such darkness never takes root again. As dusk painted the sky in violet and ember, a constellation of tiny flames sprang to life among the assembled crowd. A candlelight vigil, a silent, poignant tribute to kin still lost in shadows, their fates unknown. Alara held Leo close, their shared flame a miniature sun defying the darkness, a symbol mirroring their own arduous journey, from desolate shores of loss to the sheltered haven of reunion. Will every lost star find its sky, Mama? Leo whispered, his voice barely more than a breath in the expectant hush, a question heavy with the unspoken hopes and fears of every child present. We will never cease our vigil, my Lionheart, my brave little warrior, Alara vowed, her voice steady, sacred in its resolve, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. For every soul adrift, every aching heart deserves the sanctuary, the unconditional belonging that we have miraculously found. In the quiet solitude of their chambers that night, the day's emotions still lingering in the air, Alara watched Leo sleep. The wraiths of old sorrows, the shadowy tendrils of past trauma that once cast long chilling shadows over his young innocent face, had noticeably receded, pushed back by the steady serene light of belonging, the deep knowing that he was unconditionally loved and safe. His journey toward wholeness was ongoing, a voyage rather than a destination. Seas sometimes roiled by sudden tempests of memory, abrupt squalls of anxiety. Yet now he navigated these turbulent waters with a newfound wisdom, armed with coping skills learned and deeply internalized. His resilience stood as a quiet testament to the healing power of love and security. A soft chime broke the stillness, her comm device, discreet and gentle. A message from Lena, her tireless ally in the bureau. 2 more constellations align today, Ilara. The genetic scrolls have spoken their irrefutable truth. Another dawn is breaking, bright, hopeful, for sundered hearts. A gentle, weary smile touched Ilara's lips. Each message, each confirmation of reunion, was like reliving their own breathtaking genesis. The shock of disbelief, the explosion of pure, unfiltered joy, the overwhelming tidal wave of emotion, cleansing, fierce, upon reclaiming a treasure once thought swallowed by the void, lost forever to darkness. For 3 more sunrises, the great assembly, a vibrant city of shared experience, would pulse with life. Forums where knowledge was exchanged like precious currency. Enclaves of counsel where burdens were eased and strategies forged. The subtle weaving of new alliances, friendships, and support networks stretching far beyond the convention walls. Yet Alara knew the assembly's true. Enduring treasure wasn't found in formal programs or polished presentations, but in the invisible threads spun between souls who had walked through similar infernos, who understood, without a single word, the unique terrain of this grief, this joy. She reflected on the vast, almost unimaginable journey they'd made in just 1 revolution of the earth. Leo, once a vessel of silent, overwhelming pain, a child trapped behind walls of silence, now stood as a confident navigator, his own compass steady, guiding others with gentle empathy toward their healing shores. And she, once a solitary mourner draped in grief, had become a rallying voice for legions, a leader steering a national fleet against the entrenched forces of darkness and corruption. The Hydra of corruption, a monstrous, many-headed beast, feasting for decades on stolen innocence, was being methodically dismantled, limb by venomous limb. The confessions of Alistair Thorne, secured with the promise of leniency, sparked a cascade of inquiries into shadowed operations abroad, exposing the international reach of this vile trade. The public disgrace and downfall of Magistrate Corbin forced open thousands of sealed suspect files, each a potential story of heartbreak or reunion. But the most profound transformations, Alara felt deep in her bones, were not written in cold legal ledgers or flashing headlines. They were etched upon the warm, beating canvas of the human heart, in the tentative, courageous blossoming of trust in a child's once fearful eyes, in the slow, sacred healing of a mother's soul, freed from the phantom ache of lies, in the patient, holy reconstruction of families from the shattered wreckage of years-long separation. Leo shifted in his dreams, a soft murmur escaping his lips, the ghost of their sacred shared melody. Almost unconsciously, Alara's voice joined his, a gentle counterpoint weaving through the stillness of night. A quiet marvel at the enduring mystical power of that simple, unadorned tune. It had been his Ariadne's thread, the slender, luminous filament guiding him against all odds through the terrifying labyrinth of exile and imposed amnesia, back to her. Love's own music, she thought. Its harmonies spun from memory and instinct, holding a resonance so profound, so elemental, that even the deafening cacophony of despair, the relentless roar of trauma, could never truly, permanently silence its song. With dawn's first light, they would rejoin the great pulsing current of the assembly. Their mission, their sacred charge, was far from complete. Its horizon stretched ever wider. More voices, emboldened by the collective's safety, would rise, each weaving unique, poignant narratives into the rich, unfolding tapestry of their shared saga. More young souls, witnessing Leo's quiet, unassuming strength, his journey from silence to speech, would find flickers, and then flames, of their own nascent hope, their own courage to speak their truth. More mothers, fathers, siblings adrift in the isolating currents of grief would discover a sisterhood, a brotherhood, a profound kinship forged in the pilgrimage of healing and reclamation. The Phoenix Initiative, its wings now strong and tested, would spread wider, its call for unbreakable bulwarks against the merchants of sorrow echoing through halls of power and hearts of ordinary citizens alike. Project Chimera Hunt, its methods honed and resolve unshakable, would continue its relentless sifting through genetic destinies, algorithms, and investigators, forging miraculous reunions from cold strands of DNA. And the circles of solace, vital sanctuaries of shared vulnerability and strength, would grow, their embrace welcoming new arrivals on the tender, often terrifying journey back to belonging, back to themselves. But in this hushed, precious interlude, while the city hummed its nocturnal rhythm, Alara simply drank in the sight of her sleeping son, her heart a silent, overflowing hymn of gratitude for the impossible, breathtaking grace that had returned him to her arms. Their odyssey, so personal, so fraught with peril, had unlatched a gateway for countless others. It stood as a testament, clear and undeniable, that the scales of justice, however long imbalanced, could indeed be tipped, that the seemingly barren landscape of a wounded spirit could, with time, patience, and unwavering love, bloom anew, vibrant and whole. Beyond the window's frame, the city's myriad lights shimmered, a sprawling, man-made galaxy mirroring the silent, watchful stars above. Out there, in that vast expanse of human endeavor, Alara knew other constellations of kin remained tragically fractured, their members yearning across the void, hearts echoing an unspoken, unmet need for connection. Yet now, because of the indomitable spirit of one small boy and the unquenchable fire of a mother's devotion, a beacon pierced their darkness, a lighthouse of hope, promising that the path home, however obscured by deceit and time, could still be found. The horizon of tomorrow stretched wide, pregnant with untold potential, challenges yet to face, victories yet to claim. In her mind's eye, Alara saw the vast panorama of their year's labor, hundreds of fractured circles made whole, their laughter a melody of healing, architects of ruin brought to their knees, their empires of greed dismantled, the laws of the land reshaped and fortified to shield the vulnerable and punish the wicked. Still, the clarion call of their purpose rang clear and urgent as the day it first sounded. As long as a single child remained lost in shadow, a forgotten name in a forgotten file, as long as a single family bore the unhealed wounds of separation, their lives marked by theft, as long as justice's foundation required vigilance and unwavering advocacy, their sacred quest would endure. That spark, first struck in the solemn chamber of echoes, a child's desperate plea that shattered an empire of lies, had blazed into a mighty current of restoration and reckoning, reaching even the darkest corners of corruption. Leo, in his innocent wisdom, had unveiled to a skeptical world the undeniable power of love to transcend barriers. His 4 whispered words, a declaration of belonging against all odds, had ignited an insurrection, a quiet, radical uprising of truth, a joyous renaissance of reunion. Now, across the land, other muted voices long silenced by fear or despair found their crescendo, their stories demanding to be heard. Empty arms that had ached for years embraced their lost treasures, the warmth of reunion healing old wounds. Fractured spirits, weary from battles fought alone, mended in the gentle, affirming warmth of shared solace, finding strength in community. The velvet cloak of night drew close, and Alara sought rest, her soul an overflowing vessel of gratitude for each shared breath with her son, each moment a testament to their improbable victory. Tomorrow would bring fresh ramparts to assail, new complexities to navigate, and horizons to explore. But in the profound sanctity of this night, she honored the colossal journey behind them, her heart a steadfast lighthouse, beaming hope and resilience to all still navigating storm-tossed waters in pursuit of their own life-affirming dawns.